I don't know a company that if you don't evolve, if you don't respond to your consumers, your customers, your employees, just your stakeholders in general, one, another company will eat your lunch, and two, it is a matter of time before you are going to go out of business.
Every company wants branded content too, then they want it to be a hit. You have the Lego show, you have an Airbnb show. I wouldn't be too surprised if there's not a behind the scenes Victoria's Secret show in the works somewhere. Do it with a level of transparency and humility and knowing your mistakes and do it in public. Like, I love when brands do that.
Today, women want to see themselves reflected authentically. It is not just in the models, it is in this entire creative process. I was looking the other day and someone had created their own, blanking on the word, but like used AI to create their own persona. It wasn't even a real person, gorgeous woman, and she was running a social media page. We live in this day and age of like, what's even real? And there's just a lot of questions about what's real.
I think, surprisingly, I feel like pretty good about these fixes today.
Welcome to We Fixed It. You're welcome. The show where we take over companies, you come along for the ride, and we try to put them back better than we found them.
All right, welcome back. This topic was brought to us. We love your suggestions. And if there's something people want us to fix, we're on it. It's what we do. Today, we are going to spill all of Victoria's secrets. There's a lot happening here. We're going to put it all on the table, hash it out, and then give the company back better than we found it. So let's start with the fashion show, which is a big deal for the company. If you've been anywhere on social, you might know that the Victoria's Secret fashion show happened recently, and there was a lot going on there. You had a pregnant lady walking the runway, Nepo babies, an Olympic gymnast, a K-pop takeover. There was Missy Elliott, attempts at body positivity. There was something for everyone or no one? I don't know. With callbacks to the past and efforts to modernize the company and shake off past stigmas, it's really hard to tell what Victoria's Secret even is right now as a brand and as a cultural influence. The fashion show is one component, but that's just scratching the surface of this story. There's a lot more to this. So fortunately, Melissa's going to help us navigate the situation, and then we'll fix it. What do you have for us, Melissa?
Well, let's talk about a fantasy that was worth billions until it suddenly wasn't. So for decades, Victoria's Secret wasn't just a lingerie retailer. It was a cultural force. The fashion show was its Super Bowl, and the angels were its superstar athletes, creating an empire that at its peak dominated the marketplace. But the empire was built on a single narrow idea of beauty. And when the world changed and demanded authenticity and inclusivity, Victoria's Secret famously doubled down, and they didn't really change with the times. The backlash was brutal. The fantasy was shattered. So to understand the sheer scale of the problem that we're facing today and that Victoria's Secret is facing, you have to look at the money. Whilst Victoria's Secret was clinging to its past, a revolution was happening in this very category it invented. Here's the financial reality check. Victoria's Secret today is still a giant with about $6 billion in annual revenue, but it's a giant on shaky ground. Its net income has shrunk. A profit that they achieve is largely due to closing stores and cutting costs, not from exciting growth. And you see that in a lot of businesses, not just in this business. The competition, now you're looking at disruptors. Kim Kardashian's Skims, a brand evolved on solving the real-world problems of shape and inclusivity that Victoria's Secret somewhat ignored, is now valued at a staggering $4 billion. Sarah Blakely's Spanx, another problem-solving powerhouse, was recently acquired for $1.2 billion. So let's be clear, investors are betting $5 billion that the future belongs to brands like Skims and Spanx and not to the old Victoria's Secret playbook. Sorry, Kadira. This is the battlefield. Victoria's Secret has since canceled a lot of their marketing, a lot of what they have been doing. They've purged their leadership. They've tried to do all of these different types of things, including launching a new inclusive era with their current comeback show, which included angel ambassadors. And like Erin mentioned, they had an array of personalities and body types that were represented. So the multi-billion-dollar question we're tackling today is, can this legacy brand, built on what they originally had, truly pivot to become a brand for everybody? Or is it too late And has the market and the culture already moved on, taking that $5 billion into the future? The runway show was the easy part. So now we have to see if the business can actually walk the talk. And I would say, we really, as a group, have a big problem to solve. So let's get fixing.
Mhm. Melissa, I'm glad you said that. You said legacy brand, which is true. The company started in 1977.
Yes.
It's been bought and sold. It's gone public. We're still on the verge of what we could call a rebrand. It started in, we'll say, 2023. We're 2 years in. So for a legacy company that's been around as long as it has, to go into a new phase like the one we're in now, it's still, we could call it early days. I'd say these are like the messy years where they're figuring out what relevance is and how they play culturally. And I think we're jumping in like in the middle. We move the needle to the middle of the record. We're somewhere in the muck. So I think we're seeing some things play out in real time here.
Yeah. And I would say like it's really interesting, this whole conversation around Victoria's Secret and to see where they are right now, because the brand, I think has been, emblematic of this bigger cultural conversation, right? Around beauty and inclusion and relevance and what all that means, right? Like for decades, as you both pointed out, like Victoria's Secret really defined this very narrow idea, but an idea of femininity, right? Tall, skinny, flawless, stereotypically beautiful. That a lot of people, admired, but also criticized, right, for being unrealistic, right, as we're discussing today. And so I think that definition of femininity and beauty that they have owned, or at least crafted, it worked. It worked for a really long time. We have to acknowledge that. But I think, and especially like if you think back to like the 90s and the 2000s, they owned it. But as we know, and as we've discussed many shows before, culture moves fast and consumer expectations change quickly, and they will change dramatically on you. And, we've talked about, use the word evolution in so many shows before. I don't know a company that if you don't evolve, if you don't respond to your consumers, your customers, your employees, just your stakeholders in general, one, another company will eat your lunch, and two, it is a matter of time before you are going to go out of business, right? And so today, women want to see themselves reflected authentically. I think that's what it's about. And it's not just in the models, right? It is not just in the models. It is in this entire creative process. It is the CEO. It is in the executive leadership. It is, the photographers. It is in the vendors. That's really what, when we talk about, transformation and authenticity and understanding and representing different perspectives, Melissa, you touched on this, but the runway, that's the easy part, right? We're talking about something deeper and bigger that has to be long-term and sustainable before, especially folks today with so many companies that have been pegged as being performative and, woke washing or whatever the term is, that's going to be the difference. Here's the other thing, right? And we'll keep the show rated G so that everybody can listen to it. But I don't think it's necessarily about getting rid of the fantasy. When you walk into a Victoria's Secret store, yeah, there's the kind of everyday underwear and bras and panties, but there is a part of the store that is about fantasy, the lingerie. You're not just walking around in that stuff every day, all day. So it's not about getting rid of the fantasy. I think what the company has to focus on is how are they going to be inclusive about who makes up that fantasy? Does every woman, regardless of shape, size, ability, background, whatever that might look like, does she see herself in the fantasy, or does it appear that she's trying to live into someone else's fantasy? Don't get rid of the fantasy. Just include me in it.
Well,
Oh, go ahead, Melissa.
I was just going to say that I think that you bring up a lot of really good points. I think the moment of truth is really going to be in the stores on the rack and what the actual customer is able to get their hands on. Because if you're selling something that says we're inclusive to all body types, to all fantasies, to all of these things, and yet when you go into the Victoria's Secret store or the pink store, you only can find this size, that's a problem, right? So, like I said, when I said the runway was really easy, what I meant was the runway was curated. The runway, those, the fitting, they were fitted. All those models, whether they were Angel Reese as, you know, a 6 foot tall athlete, or, you know, Ashley Graham as a plus size model, they were all fitted to look amazing on the runway. They didn't go into a store and say, "Hey, give me that off the rack." So you're sitting there, you know, hoping that your brand is going to become this authentic, inclusive brand, and you know, and relay it to Kadira, to the fantasy of all. But that's going to be a very different operational issue that you're going to have, and a product issue that you're going to have. And so, you know, when we compare them, I mean, maybe it's not fair to compare them to Skims or to Spanx, who has a very niche model, right? They're going for a specific thing. And, you know, Victoria's Secret has long-term, you know, like in their catalog, they used to have clothes and swimsuits and all these kinds of things. So what kind of inventory and product line you know, really actually deliver on? So have they expanded their size ranges? Have they made all those available in stores or just online? So when a plus size person walks into the mall, they're not able to actually get it. But maybe that's okay if they made a promise that we are going to make sure we have a fit concierge and we're going to get you the best fit possible, and we're going to curate that fit to you, right? Yeah. And then we're going to send it to your house. So, yeah. You know, I mean, maybe that's what they need to do. I mean, you know, I always laugh. I always think about the early days, and it's still the same, I think, of Victoria's Secret. My kids and my husband, nobody would want to go there because it smelled, because it was so powerful, the perfume and stuff. And I remember getting like a nightgown or something from my family. I'm not sure it was my husband, but like from my family. And I remember my son saying, we ran in and had our nose plugged because we couldn't handle the smell. But like, again, you know, that's beside the point. But I do think it's going to be in delivering this idea that they're trying to, again, transform themselves into.
Yeah. And I think absolutely all of that, Melissa. And I think, you know, Erin, answer your question, right? Like, I think it's time will tell, right? Like we're seeing with so many of these brands that, you know, the question is like, is it performative? Is it authentic? I think when it comes down to, you know, answering that question or thinking about what really is authentic, is it real? Is it pandering or not? It's about, you know, is your work visible, but also is it verifiable? And that's why, you know, when we talk about like the runway, that's the external, like you said, we keep saying that. And I think, yep, it's true. Let's double down on that. That's the easy part. That's the external. It's, you know, easier. You can put some models on the runway. You can have diversity there. But like, we also have to look at what is happening internally, right? And so just from like a people and culture standpoint, you know, they have to make sure, as every company, I preach this all the time, like you have to have that representation at every level, right? Just as Melissa, you were saying. And so that's, you know, diversity across leadership. It's in design, it's in merchandising, it's in marketing, it's creative direction, right? When people making the decisions reflect your audience, you know, that authenticity kind of naturally follows, right? So I think they also have to, you know, we see companies do this. It's not new, but like publishing those transparent diversity metrics. Like, are you actually sticking to them? It's okay to stumble. It's okay. We expect that. It's going to happen. The consumer's smart and savvy, but like, don't try to hide what's happening, right? Who's in leadership? Who's being promoted? Who's being hired? Are you tracking them? Are they getting the stretch assignments? Are they being visible? Like, that's where people start to say, okay, wait a minute, let's pay attention to this company because they actually are committed to this. Along those lines, I think it's also about voice and influence. You know, who is actually able to speak up and share creative ideas, and you know, do you have employees from different backgrounds that are empowered to kind of change some of those old norms? We don't want to discount the legacy because it's what built the company, but are you bringing in people that can say, hey, can I challenge that idea that we've kind of been circling the drain for the last 10, 20 years and think about something different? And that requires psychological safety. We hear that term a lot in companies, but it is so true, because if people can't speak up internally without fear of pushback or tokenization, well, then there you go, right? I think also it's about values, right? Are your values embedded in your systems? And does everybody in the company, from the CEO to, the executive assistants to the janitor and the cleaning crew to your creative team, follow them, right? Again, that's when we talk about being inclusive, stops being performative, and it becomes operational. And then I think lastly, it is about just being transparent and accountable. Again, as I was saying earlier, like your consumer, the public, even your employees, just any stakeholder is going to expect that there are going to be stumbles, but it's how you're talking about, like, hey, we got this wrong. We're going to be honest about it. We tried it. We, intended to do something well-meaning, but the impact we understand was not what it should have been. And so here's what we are going to do to fix it. And then you point to all the other things that I just talked about. And again, that's when you start to build trust with the public. So I think those are the types of things that can make a difference.
So I love it. It's not just does your product fit me? Do you have something that's going to work for me? It's do I find myself represented in this company? Do I align it all levels or many levels? So beyond just, do I see myself represented in the very front end, the very top layer of this company? It's throughout. Do I feel if I walk into a store, do I belong there? If I see the messaging or the corporate communication, is that reflective of what I stand for? That's a big reinvention for a company of this magnitude.
And I think that Kadira, God, I love what you just said. I think that it is one of the things that this company in particular, the authenticity and not being performative, which you said, is so key, because they've keep like switching, like their marketing strategies. So it doesn't feel authentic, right? Like putting up, like putting these athletes out there feels like, okay, these are hot athletes right now that we all love, right? So, okay, great. Thank you. Cause I know who they are. I know these K-pop stars. I know, whatever, but like, it doesn't really feel like they've embraced, or they've even kind of come out with like, what do they stand for? We talk about these mission-based, and if it's a fantasy, then let's have it be a fantasy. But like, what was the fantasy that those ambassadors were showcasing, right?
Yeah.
So how did that, kind of hit me in the heart and make me want to go out there and do that, right? So in terms of like, go out there and shop. So I really love what you said, because I do feel like this specifically, when we say being authentic, we say that a lot, but this is truly one of those cases where they need to really decide how they want to address this. And, I loved how you also, brought up that, there's nothing wrong with the fantasy. There's nothing wrong with the lingerie and being sexy and all of that thing and what they're, basically have been, because that's not what Spanx and, and Skims is about. They're more about building confidence that good in who you are. So like, this is a new culture. And what does Victoria's Secret want to be?
Right.
So how do they build the fantasy and embed confidence, right? So maybe that's what they need to redefine their purpose as.
Yeah.
They're not just selling a fantasy anymore. They're selling the foundation for real life confidence, right? And confidence is a fantasy, right? That allows them to expand into these other high growth areas, right? Like shapewear, et cetera. But also like continue to create beautiful lingerie and loungewear, but that's also functional for people of all shapes and sizes, right? And all different types of fantasies, right? So I really love how you said that. I think the bigger part for us is, how do they fix that, and how do they actually, move into kind of a new brand umbrella? And Erin, I don't know, like, I feel like their brand, it's so strong, right? Like when you say, like, a lot of people just say Victoria's Secret when they mean underwear. They don't, when I
Sure.
and I like, you go to any Target, you go anywhere else to buy underwear, and they do now the same thing that Victoria's Secret was the first to do, right? Which is buy 5 pieces of underwear for X amount of price, right? They have the nice little lingerie drawers that you can pull out for all the different sizes, so you can find your, your size and the colors you want and things like that. And so
Yeah.
I feel like they built that, so that when you go into a department store that is not a Victoria's Secret, you feel like you're in Victoria's Secret because you're buying, you're buying the underwear in this they're using the same type of, displays. They're using the same type of pricing models. They're using the same product things, right? Like, oh, this is, shapewear or whatever they're using, calling it hipster huggers or whatever. And it just seems like they've built that, but they've got to be able to think about the future, because I feel like they're, all of these other niche brands are poking holes in what they're able to provide. And I wonder, I don't know if pink was their attempt at more like young, it was less lingerie, more like sports bras and things like that. I don't know, but I feel like, they have such a foundation to start with.
Yeah.
Nope.
Melissa, I think you totally hit it on the head about what the crossroads is, and what were the painful things that we're seeing play out is they want it both ways. So, we were talking about expanding the product line, and if you're going to run a $6 billion company, let alone, sustain, let alone grow, you got to move a lot of units, right? So if they're making this brand promise, and again, we're 2023, we're not that far into that promise. If they are serious about it, we're going to be representative of you. We're going to have more variety. We're going to have more sizes in our inventory. So if they keep going the expanded product line to fit, everybody and every body type, then you're essentially at underwear warehouse. And I don't know if it's trademarked or something, but it wants to shop there. They want the curated kind of experience. And like you, Melissa, like you said, like they've created a shorthand for how you do this that other retailers can copy, because it exists now and consumers know how to navigate the situation. So you can go that everything for everybody, and those, may as well shop at Home Depot for underwear. Or you can go the unattainable way in the high fashion and unrealized standards of beauty that no one can hit, right? Which they're still doing. Like, we're seeing both things play out in the market at the same time, and no wonder people are confused and saying, "What is this company even?" That's where we're at right now.
Well, I think that there's an opportunity. Kadira, you really made me kind of switch my ideas about this. But like, what if we really have, really lean into the fantasy part? Okay, right? Like what their foundational, lingerie, like the sexiest lingerie ever. And they partner with like very modern types of situations, like Love Island, The Bachelor. Okay, hear me out. The Bachelor, they have I don't even watch The Bachelor anymore, but I know they have like the overnight suite or some like thing when he gets down to 3 people. What if it was the Victoria's Secret suite, right? And they provide amazing lingerie for, the contestants, or on Love Island, or what, all these shows that are really big, Love is Blind, like all the things right now, right? And what if, really they continue to focus on that. And then in their stores, they have like this fantasy suite area, which is all these amazing, beautiful, curated, looks from their different partnerships of lingerie, right? And then they have their concierge service, right? Which is they have a fit guarantee right now already. Like, you can go and get measured, but like they continue to do that, and like, double down on really who they were to begin with. I don't know. Maybe that's what they need.
And this is going to be crazy, I think, too, because look, if you're an employee of a company, especially like Victoria's Secret, do you want your colleagues seeing you in your underwear? But I just think about, how do they bring the lived experience and the why, I guess, of the employee front and center, right? Like, I think there's something, so, and however they might want to do that, again, because, that can be really interesting, again, working for a company, but like, most of the employees for that company have a why. Why do you work there? Again, it's an iconic brand. It's a legacy brand. Is there a storytelling opportunity even there, right? Because I'm guessing here, but like, I imagine there's probably a little bit of clash or mismatch at times with employees and what is going on with the brand and how it's evolving or not. And so, is there an opportunity for them to, even do some sort of campaign with employees and just understanding like their why for being involved with this campaign? It may not even be about them getting, naked. Again, I'm kind of even like going back to the conversation we had about Jaguar, right? And that being a legacy brand and how you bring those employee stories or longtime customer stories into the mix. That is an opportunity to tell real stories, real humans, right? That had long been shopping at Victoria's Secret. How do you bring them in? I mean, think about like, we have some of those, beautiful, mature models in their 70s, right? How cool of a campaign would it be if you're a long-term customer to be like that? To me is saying it's fantasy. I'm still sexy, but I'm a real woman. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that you've hit a really great opportunity for them. So, like, to really make it, I'm a documentary aficionado. I love to watch them all the time. But creating something that almost has that feel, because there are a lot of people out there who would watch this. And so, like, behind the wings, right? The wings, and have it be like a documentary style thing. And it talks, and you take five of the angel ambassadors. So you take a Megan Rapinoe, you take an Ashley Graham who just had kids, she's got 3 kids or 4 kids or something like that, and a day in her life. And when she got the phone call and they asked her to be a model again on the runway, what did she think? And like, how does she wear, what does she wear and what does she put together? Right. I love what you said. And then like a total behind the scenes at corporate.
Yeah.
Right. And then fighting in the boardroom and then saying like, oh no, like, how are we going to fit this person? And then like kind of hearing like what actually goes into creating the sausage, like a lot of times we don't want to know. We just want the end result.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying because it makes it the fantasy real for real people.
That's right.
Not for just ambassadors. And so
That's right.
I love that kind of behind the scenes, a curated story, driving, and talking about the challenges, right?
Yep.
Like, I'm sure I've been at the table and I'm the only person that looks like this.
Yep.
Right. And and you have those moments in time where you're like, gosh, we're selling, underwear and lingerie and foundations, and there are 10 men and 2 women here, and the 2 women are in HR and marketing.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not on the product side, they're not on the operation side, they're not on the finance side, and you're telling me how we should be like building this. So
Yeah.
I love what you have to share because I do think, again, that gets to that authenticity. And I feel like if people could see the struggle, they actually, you root for an underdog, and it's nostalgia, right? Like, I was so excited when I got enough money saved from babysitting to be able to go to Victoria's Secret, because that was like, wow, like that's a big deal, right? And so like, I think you could get people to buy into that more. And willing to be like, I want to participate in this because I don't want this legacy brand to go away. I don't want it to all become underwear warehouse, right?
Yep.
Right. Well, and I'm in if they turn the camera on themselves, and we don't know the exact composite of those rooms. I'm guessing they're not quite as homogenous as they used to be in the 80s or early 90s or, but if they make their people the center of the conversation, and they are, let's say they're all one flavor, like people are going to point that out pretty quick. So they're going to have to, think about who's representative, again, not just the final mile on the runway, but at all stages of the company and the decisions, especially if they make their people not just angel ambassadors, but make everyone an ambassador. I like where you're going with that.
Yeah. Here's what it takes to create the fantasy.
I think there's something there. And
Yeah.
and it is a way of having it both ways. Look, sometimes we're going to put on wings and prance around. That's part of what we are. And the rest of the time we're people. We're regular people, and here's how we live, and here's how we argue, and here's Kadira, like you said, like here's the ingredients that go into the maintaining or upholding those moments of fantasy, right?
That's right.
Huh.
And I think it's a great reminder to, connecting the dots of the boardroom, and not even necessarily just the boardroom, but like the product team, everyone to the ultimate customer. And sometimes we forget where we add value, right? Like your voice adds value, right? What you do helps, and ensuring that it's shown and that it's understood is so important. And I love, Kadira, I love this idea of like what's behind the scenes. And I think that, in an age of mass information, right? We are in an age where you can Google, chat, whatever, every Wikipedia, we can do all the things. It's really sometimes, it's sometimes that we need to put that story out ourselves and not have that story be put upon us. Right. Yeah. So like, I feel like this is a great opportunity for them to drive the narrative and try to explain all the different changes and how they've been trying to course correct and what's worked and what's not worked. Because in their mind, they may be like, we're being super successful because people are talking about us again, which is again, true, right? That's true. We're talking about them. But I love this idea of like, there's so much more behind the scenes that's going on.
Yeah.
That no one really knows.
Yeah.
Every company wants branded content too. Then they want it to be a hit. You have the Lego show. You have an Airbnb show. You have, I wouldn't be too surprised if there's not a behind the scenes Victoria's Secret show in the works somewhere, or they've been pitched it 100 times. But I don't, I like what you're saying, like do it with a level of transparency and humility and own your mistakes and do it in public. Like I love when brands do that. That's put down the protective veil and say, look, here's what we're all about. It's risky at a company of this size, and it takes a little bit of egos putting aside and to be that vulnerable, but it can work. It can work big time.
Yeah. And I think that they probably, I'm certain, they have Victoria's Secret rewards and things like that. So I'm sure that they do some sort of customer forums and things like that. So even having like an understanding of what loyal customers, that have been there for many, many years say about why they still keep coming back, right? And is it the product? Probably, yes. Is it, the fit guarantee? Is it what is it about it that makes them come back? And then also, what are the things that they're concerned about, right? Like they're concerned that they don't see shapewear like they want, or whatever it might be, it would be really, I think this is a really great way to be an authentic brand and showing kind of the struggles of the choices that they have to make, because they're hard, right?
Yeah.
They're hard.
This is a good one. I like it.
Good job, Kadira. I'll go to your Kadira, the store manager.
No, I just, I think, Melissa, to your point, we live in, with social media and chat GPT. I was looking the other day and someone had created their own, I'm blanking on the word, but like used AI to create their own persona. It wasn't even a real person, gorgeous woman. And she was running a social media page behind, like we live in this day and age of like, what's even real? And there's just a lot of questions about what's real, and everything is curated. And how am I at work on a Monday, but you're on a yacht? What do you do for a living? We're not at work. And, everybody's showing their highlight reels and things like that. But I think on the flip side of that, we're all hungry. We keep using that word authenticity, but we're hungry for authenticity. We're hungry to see the real. We're hungry to see the blunders, the behind the scenes. We're hungry to connect with real, with people who look like us every day, going about their lives, just trying to take care of their families and be the best that they can be. And so I think this is an opportunity for Victoria's Secret, again, to kind of mesh the fantasy and illusion that they created that, again, we don't want to go away. But there is something so rich about them being able to kind of, for even a moment, whether, like you said, it's a documentary or some sort of vignette or a show or whatever, just pull the wool back for a little bit and let people see inside. I think that could go such a long way.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. And especially like Kadarius, you were talking about the AI generated people, and before, up till now, the unattainable beauty standards were these models and angels, but now there are people that aren't real. You heard about this Tilly Norwood, the fake actress that's getting signed by all the agencies are fighting over her to put her in movies and commercials and things. But that's the tip of the iceberg. Like, the unattainable beauty standards are going to be people that aren't real. So you can take a step away from that and say, look, there's a fantasy at the heart of it, but there's attainable beauty, whether it's every day or whether it's these moments of glamour and high fashion. Like, I think connecting it back to attainability is going to go a long way with this, with moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
All right. So I think we're ready to fix this. So if we go more toward the idea that, yes, we can, we can have those moments of, like I said, putting ourselves in the spotlight, putting on the wings, being ultra glamorous. That's bad. Don't throw that out. That's hard. That's part of what we have been all about for a long time. And widen the net of who's accepted into what we'll call the standards of beauty. If you are making not just overtures, but real commitments to body positivity, like, again, we're 2 years into that. Let's see where you go with that. Let's see where you go in terms of embracing your power users, right? Your longtime loyal customers. Let's hear their stories, why they came to you, why they stayed with you. And, as always, make sure you have decision makers, diversity and representation and decision makers at all levels, not just that final mile. Oh, the reality shows. Partner with, you could be on every, for the brand integration part, they could be on pretty much any reality show they want, and I think shows would gladly take them. That's a good place to be, because not the reality is reality. We all know that, reality shows, but it connects it to the day to day, and it connects it to a heightened reality, and creates people that sometimes superstars, sometimes C-list or D-list out of regular people who can come out with some with a following and with some cachet, and they're pretty cheap. Like, when they first land in the spotlight, they could get a bunch of ambassadors like really fast, right? So they could monopolize a lot, like just the reality show gamut. I think they do pretty well there. So if we throw all this into the company and say, hey, have at it. Well, Melissa, I'll come back to you. Kadira, did we fix it?
I think we totally fixed it. Like, I hope that they rock with some of these ideas or all of them. I am like super excited the way that we've kind of spun this just in our conversation. Absolutely. I mean, look, again, we don't want to get rid of the fantasy. That really is the legacy of Victoria's Secret. Melissa, I think you perfectly put that. Like, that's, again, what separates them from like a Skims or a Spanx. That's fine. This is their space to play. So play. Get in your sandbox and play. And, again, show us that the true creative diversity is behind the scenes. Like, that's what makes the brand, and how you're going to step into the next 50 years of the business. So I think by putting, into play the fixes that you just walked through, and again, not ditching who the legacy has been and can continue to be, just show that you're evolving, show that fantasy is now reflective of all different types of customers. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Melissa, what do you say?
I love it. I think that this is a really great, I think it's a head start for them. I do think there is, from an operational perspective, a need to be very hyper-focused on the product fit and the range. They also have, retail stores in almost every single mall. So they have a destination for folks to go, and they can I think that they should lean into that. They're the destination for the best fit for everybody. Right. And really use their retail footprint to take advantage of their digitally only competitors, or the competitors, like a Spanx that's kind of everywhere but nowhere. Does that make sense? And I really love this idea of like kind of launching a confidence concierge service. So kind of rebranding their fit guarantee, where you could go in and get measured for whatever your needs were, and having those be their like undisputed internal Victoria's Secret ambassadors, right? They become the expert. They offer free, inclusive, highly trained fitting services, and they guarantee and the promise that we are going to get you the best fitted, lingerie possible. That builds trust, creates a concrete reason to shop beyond just their brand, right? And I do think that along with the documentary style stuff, the authenticity around behind the scenes, I think redefining their purpose is really important, Kadira. I love that. I would not get rid of fantasy, right? I think that's definitely a unique thing to them. But I would also say that it's not only fantasy. I think they're selling real life confidence would be one of the things I would say, because that's inclusive of their entire umbrella of products, not just the sexy corseted lingerie and thong, right? That you're not going to be wearing. Well, maybe you are. I don't know, to a corporate meeting. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe to your podcast. But this allows them to like continue to expand in those different high growth categories, but also continue to keep to their roots, right? Yeah. Which is really important. I love that. So I think, surprisingly, I feel pretty good about these fixes today.
Yeah, I love that.
That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I wrote that confidence piece. Yes.
I got one more. It's going to cost some money, but it's a public company. We'd have to figure all this out. But
$6 billion. Come on, they can handle it.
Well, just buy your competitors. Just buy. They've created an audience. They've created a market share. They've got a category on lock. Like, just purchase them. And then if Victoria's Secret doesn't speak to you, add a little tag. Each of them buy Victoria's Secret. If the central parent company doesn't speak to you, go to a subsidiary. And then it does. And then there's no apology needed. Like, yeah, sorry, you didn't have what you were looking for here. Why don't you try Skims, by Victoria's Secret?
Boom. There you go.
Game over.
I love it.
It's an investment, but they've weathered a lot of storms since 1977. If they are really embracing what they say they are, and they can do it across a family of companies, which they have a little umbrella, but they can make a big umbrella, then there's truly something for everybody. So
yeah,
let's tack that onto your brilliant synopsis, both of you.
Love it.
Well, that's going to take us to the end of this episode. Melissa, Kadira, we just fixed a $6 billion company. I guess I'll go have a sandwich or something. Melissa, thank you for starting us off and for your amazing takes on all this. Kadira, same to you. Incredible stuff. We are your fearless fixers. We never rest for long, and companies keep breaking, which keeps us really busy. If there's a company or topic we haven't gotten to yet, throw them our way. You can reach us at wefixeditpod.com. You can find us on the red carpet, catch us at the after party, or your people can call our people. And we will see you next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode of We Fixed It, You're Welcome. We go into every episode somewhat cold, and nothing we say should be construed as legal advice, financial advice, or anything that would get us in trouble. All trademarks, IP, and brand elements remain property of their respective owners.